I think good afternoon, everyone. Today we will continue on the yesterday lectures. I believe yesterday we started talking about the trigonometric functions. We started by the end of the lecture yesterday. Farid wasn't happy about this because we were walking so fast, so I will repeat it and we will go from here. Hopefully we will end till the part of the exponential functions. Okay? I will start with this simple identity, which is cosine square x plus sine square x equal 1. It's really very simple, and you can get the other two identities from this identity really very simple. Okay? All I have to do to get this one is to divide this identity on cosine square. So if I divide it by cosine square, this is going to be 1. This is going to be sine square divided by cosine square, which is simply going to be 10 square. And this one is going to be 1 over cosine square, which is 6 square. Also, the third one is really very simple. Okay, Farouk? Because all you have to do is to divide this relation on sine square. So you will have cosine square over sine square, which is cos square. 1 is going to be, because you are dividing on sine square, then you will have 1 over sine square, which is cosec square. So it's really very simple. Okay, Farouk? There is also two important relations, which about the addition and subtraction of trigonometric functions. Like sine alpha plus or minus beta equals sine alpha cosine beta plus cosine alpha sine beta. Okay? This goes for the same sign. So if I have an addition, the sign in the middle will be a positive value. So if you are talking about a subtraction between these two angles, the sign in the middle will be negative. Okay, go.
Dr. Omar, are we gonna get this PowerPoint on Moodle?
Yes, you have it, and also I sent it on the WhatsApp group,
Okay.
so you will find it. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Also, for cosine alpha plus or negative beta, it's going to be cosine alpha cosine beta minus and the addition of sine alpha sine beta. So it starts with cosine cosine minus or positive sine sine. So the first one starts by sine times cosine, then cosine times sine. But for the cosine, they will start with cosines, then sines. Of course, Neda, if I want to get tan, it's going to be really very simple, and we will go through it within the next slide. But for the time being, if I want to get a relation of 2x, 2 times any angle, all I have to do is to consider the addition or the plus sign in both sine and cosine, and replacing the beta by alpha. So I will have for sine 2 alpha, 2 sine alpha, cosine alpha. If I'm talking about cosine 2 alpha, which is 2 times the angle, will equal to cosine square alpha minus sine square alpha. انت معايا؟ امال ليه حاسك مبهور وخايف؟ اوكي، يبقى اذا ده هيديني cosine square x minus sine square x or cosine square alpha minus sine square alpha. By the idea, Fatin, if I used the first identity, which is cosine square plus sine square equal 1, and make some replacements with this right-hand side, for example, if I replace cosine square x by 1 minus sine square, I will get 1 minus sine square x minus 2. 1 minus 2 sine square x. This is very, very important because we can get these two relations. Can you see them, these two relations? Which replaces sine square, Yanada, to 1 minus cosine 2x over 2, or cosine square x to be 1 plus cosine 2x over 2. Why these two relations are important? They will play key role in integration down the road. Because I can integrate sine of x. I can integrate cosine of x. Simply, I can go through sine cube x, sine to the power of 3x. Because simply I can make it like sine x times sine square, replacing sine square by 1 minus cosine square, and so it will be, I will be able to integrate. But unfortunately, for sine square x or cosine square x, there is no other solution than using these two laws. So this is why this is really very important. I usually memorize them by sine square, cosine square. They are both related to cosine 2x. The sign will have a minus, but the cosine is really is positive. And both of them start with 1. So if I want to use this, just sine square, I will replace it with 1 minus sine 1 minus cosine 2x over 2. If I have cosine square x, I want to integrate, I will replace it with 1 plus cosine 2x over 2. Of course, if I want to prove problem like this, it's really very simple. If I want to prove this, so all I have to do is to use first, I'll start from the left-hand side, which is tan over alpha plus or minus beta. What's the tan? It's a sine over cosine. So it's going to be sine alpha plus beta, plus or minus beta, divided by cosine alpha plus or minus beta. Then I will replace the sine by sine alpha cosine beta plus or minus cosine alpha sine beta. The cosine law, it's going to be on the denominator. Then the key issue now is dividing both the numerator and the denominator on cosine alpha cosine beta. Why? Because I want to see tan. I have sines. So if I divide it by a cosine, I would see tan. This is why I choose to divide both numerator and denominator on cosine alpha cosine beta. And it will give you this shape. Just remaining to cancel cosine betas together. Here I will cancel the cosine alpha, and you will end up having your proof. It's really simple. This one I don't want to prove. It's simple, direct, so I'm not going to go through it. You will have a bunch of problems like those ones, which you really solve it in the PDF. I will choose some of them to solve with you, okay? Just as a training of how to use the identities that we did go through. So, let's see. I believe number 5 looks tempting. And of course, number 6, I will go through it. Why not to go also through number 7? Before going through all of this, I think yesterday or in the previous lecture, I've spoke with you about the relations of sine minus 1 arc sine x. Did I do that? Do you remember? I talked about this. Sine square, the differences between sine square x, sine x square. I believe I did also go through it. But just in case, because I love Farouk and he was not here yesterday, so I will reveal this part. Mr. Farouk, if I have sine minus 1x written this way, this stands for arc of a sine x, which means the inverse of this trigonometric value. Okay? If I want to say sine x to the power of -1, I will write it this way. And this means 1 over a sine of an x. And of course, you know, yes, you are right, it's cosec of x. Also, if I wrote sine x to the power of -1, it stands for a sine of 1 over x for the angle of this value. This is really very important. And also, if I want to state sine square of x, which means sine of x to the power of 2. These two are the same. Remark, Farouk. In the case of any power other than -1, they will be equal to each other. But in specific, for -1, sine -1 Farid, it's arc sine. But if I want to state the power, I will write it sine of x to the power of -1 to avoid the confusion of using the -1 and the inverse trigonometric meaning of this function. Okay. Also, for writing of a sine of an x to the power of 2, it's exactly like sine x squared, something like this. For those of you who don't write the 2 accurate, some people you will find them loose. دلع يعني. بيجي يكتب الاثنين متدلع. فهي تركب بار، تركب بين الاكس، تركب على الان، وما يضرش. خلي بالك, this is really very important. Because also you have sine of a 2x, which is a sine of 2 times the angle. So please be careful about the numbers beside the angles? Is it above the n, above the angle, or beside the angle value? Okay, this is very, very important. Okay, now you know all of this. I will start for this problem, which is sine 3x. Let me be sure about the area covered in the camera. I believe this part is covered. So just a second, please. Okay, very good. Now I want to prove that sine of a 3x equal to whatever is stated here in number 5, which is 3 sine x minus 4 sine 3 minus 4 sine to the power of 3 of x. Any suggestions? Any suggestions? What to do? From where to start? Yes, 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 Nada is correct. She looked at this and she thought that all the trigonometric functions here are functions in x. So I will need to break this angle to be in terms of x, just only x. So Nada chose to break it to be a sine of an x plus 2x. Yes, Ms. Nada? Now I can use the مظبوط صح? Okay, so I will use the law which is sine alpha plus cosine beta. So let's do it. So I can say that this value can be written as a sine of an x times cosine of a 2x. Then since I'm talking with sine, so the sine will be positive. So it will be the addition, which is gonna be a cosine of an x times a sine of a 2x. Now we succeeded in getting a sine of an x. Okay, but I don't want to see cosines. Okay, let's call, I have one of the rows that can change cosine 2x in terms of sine x. Hazan, do you remember it? We already, yes, yes, Mr. Hazan. I know. Yes, you are correct. 1 minus 2 sine square x plus this is cosine x. So Hazan knows that we have how many rows? 3 of them. Cosine square x minus sine x, and 1 minus 2 sine square x, and 2 cosine square x minus 1. So he chose 1 minus 2 sine square x in order to see sine x. Okay. Mr. Farid, sine 2x, I want to replace it with something with sine x. So, any ideas?
No. Sine.
Okay, perfect. 2 of sine x times cosine x. So I replace sine 2x by 2 sine x cosine x. Now
كده في 2 cosine x sin x cosine
ما هو ده لوجيك لانه هو انا بدي عندي ساين بعدين تايمز 2 ساين اكس كوزاين اكس وانا بكتب خدت 2 بره بس عادي صح؟ في اعتراض؟
طيب دكتور
قول يا مستر فريد
كده في 2 cosine x sin x cosine x
ماشي مع على نفسها يا فريد
على نفس لا ما دي على
يعني ده هيديلك ساين اكس ماينس 2 ساين صح يا فريد؟ 3 اكس انا قربت قوي صح؟ صح؟ بعدين هلاقي عندي هنا بلس 2 of sin x بعدين الكلام ده كوزاين سكوير اكس صح مستر فريد؟ مظبوط. The next step I will use one of the identities. Do you remember to say that? So it's gonna be sin x minus 2 sin cube x plus 2 of sin x replacing cosine square x by 1 minus a sine square of x. Yes, sine square plus cosine square equal 1. So I used this one. Now all your problems is solved. You have sine of x and you have sine cube. What's remaining is to collect them together. So I will have a sine of x. This is 2 sine, and this is 1 sine. So it's gonna come up to 3 sine x. This is negative 2 sine cube, and this is 2 sine, and will be multiplied by sine square. So gathering them together will lead to minus 4 sine cube of x, which is exactly equal to the right hand side. Any questions? Huh?
انا ما فهمتش حرف واحد.
ليه فري؟
من الاخر
بحاول بس
دكتور هو انا
ليه فري؟
التريجونومتري اصلا المره اللي فاتت انا برضه يعني اصلا المره اللي فاتت
بص يا دكتور،
ماليش دعوه بامراضك النفسيه.
بص يا دكتور، الصراحه المشكله مش فيك يا دكتور.
لا لا المشكله فيك، انا عارف.
I have a question.
ما انا عارف،
بص
على الاقل مش مريض.
بص المسألة دي بتشتغل خليك معايا، خليك امال اللي بره
اسف.
حبايبك كتير. فريد،
ايوه
شايف الورقة اللي قدامك؟ اه
شايف.
واضحة صح؟ ساين سكوير اكس بلس ساين اكس سكوير اكس ايكوال 1. معايا مستر مهاب؟ دي اللوز والايدنتيتيز بتاعت التريجونومتريك فانكشنز.
هو ده اللي احنا كنا
طيب.
بنقوله صح؟
اللي هو انت بتقول انا ما رجعتش عليه.
حضرتك
طيب دول مهمين ليه؟ لأن I use them with simplifying or proving. فهو he wants you to prove that sine 3x equal blah blah blah. All of this is stated. So I will start thinking about that this is sine 3 of x, but all I saw in the right hand side are just only sine x. So I need to play with this angle, which is 3x, and break it to be x or 2x. So I will start to choose which one of these laws are important. معايا مستر مهاب؟ يبقى أنا هدخل هنا وهبدأ أبص في دول كلهم. مين ممكن يساعدك؟ ده ساين ألفا بلس بيتا. يبقى هبدأ أقسم الأنجل بتاعتي لإكس و2 إكس. خلي بالك إن أنا بريبيت ده. اللي أنت قلت من شوية أنت.
انا؟
إنه في بعض الدرجة. ولا أنت أوكي؟
انا حاجه لا.
طب حلو قوي، بس أنا بحس إن دماغ بنات أفكارك بيروحوا فين الأول.
تمام.
ماشي. يبقى هنا ساين ألفا بلس بيتا. يبقى I will break it. Instead of having 3x خليها كام مستر فريد؟ x plus 2x. طيب علشان ابريك x و 2x يبقى ده الفا وده بيتا. I will use this law. So it's gonna be sin x cosine 2x. Then plus cosine x sin 2x. ده بالظبط اللي حصل عندك في الفيرست ستيتمنت. Second step. أنا جبت sin x which is required. Then I will need to replace mean. طيب عندك how many identity you can use? 3. This identity can be used. That one also can be used. And this one can be used. I choose to use this one. ليه؟ لأن أنا عايز sin x. يبقى على طول رحت جاي شايل كوزين 2x وحطيت 1 minus 2 sin of the square of x. Done. Simple. خلاص الجزء ده ظهر sin x وظهر sin x to the power of 3. But there is still another problem that I have here sin 2x. Sin 2x you don't have any alternatives. You will have to use this law, which is 2 sin of x cosine x. This is why I replaced sin 2x by the 2 at the beginning, just to avoid writing it here and rewrite it again on the whiteboard. So I wrote 2 sin x cosine x. Already succeeded in getting sin x, and I have cosine square. Cosine square also, I wanna change it to be sine square, in terms of sine square, which is very, very simple from the first identity. Just replacing cosine square by 1 minus sine square. It's already happened. معايا مس ندى؟ معايا مس فاتن؟ تمام؟ قشطة؟ بعدين sin x times 1 2 sin x times negative sine square هيجمع لك النمبرز اللي تحت. Which is really very simple. طبعا انا فاهم ان في حد من البهوات اللي قاعدين يقول الله طب ما انا دي لو جات لي هنفكر فيها ازاي؟ ماشي قبل ما تشوف ده، عشان كده انا اخترت البروبلم دي ان سبيسيفيك عشان تشوف ازاي استخدمت الايدنتيتيز المختلفه من ليفت تو رايت. معايا يا مستر فريد؟ اوكي بيرفكت. معايا يا مستر فريد؟ ولا اربعه. طبعا كل ده محلول عندك بنفس الاسلوب. بص كل ده معاك بنفس الاسلوب مفيش اي مشكله. عايز افرجك على واحده جديده، عايز اوريلك واحده جديده برضو فكره اكيد انت خدتها previously so I wanna focus on it. ويتهاك البارت بتاع الانفرس trigonometric functions. This is why 6 looks tempting. الرساله بتاعت 6 دي حلوه. ده خلاص اوكي؟ ده خلاص؟ اوريدي موجود معاك في البي دي اف. انا بعته البي دي اف اصلا كله for this chapter وبرضه ريكوردد فان شاء الله مش هيبقى فيه مشكله واتساب. طيب تعالوا بقى معايا. نسيت اقول لك حاجه مهمه قوي. all of these problems مش تنفع انك تبص عليها بعينيك. طبعا مهم فاهم الكلام ده. يعني ما اقدرش ابص عليها كده حلو ميك سنس حلو ده جه هنا ايوه بس ده جه من هنا خلاص. ما ينفعش. You will have to solve it by your hand. يعني all of these problems you will have to resolve it by your pen. This is really very important.
If I can't,
ايه؟
if I can't solve it.
I can't ليه مش عارف تمسك قلم؟
لا بعرف امسكه بس مش بعرف
طب مع
أكتب.
ثانية تعرف تمسك قلم صح؟ وده ريكورد قدامك صح؟ وانت شفت الستبس بتاعته صح؟ طيب يعني ده معناه على فكرة انا مش بدائي مهاب، بس انا بجاوب على سؤال مهاب وبحترم السؤال ده قوي، فعايز اشرحه لك بحيث انه ما تقابلش ده بعد كده. انا هاجي اشتغل على البروبلم دي فور ذا فيرست تايم. معايا فريد؟ يعني انا بكره اذاكر، فبكره قعدت الجزء ده انا مش فاكره فحاولت اكتبه بايدي مش عرفت. ما تقومش. عشان كده انت عندك ريكوردز، شغل الريكورد بص عليه بعدين اعمل له ستوب، اتكلم على الجزء ده ان سبيسيفيك. معايا كده؟ بعدين حله تاني بايدك. طب ستيل في حته واقفه معايا، اصل انا لسه مش memorizing all the trigonometric relations. Okay, I will look at them at the PDF but not the video and I will try to solve them. كده انت بتنشر ده. فاهمني يا مهاب؟ بعدين برجع اكتبهم. طيب انا كتبتهم بس خدت half an hour writing them لان actual انا برايت وبعدين ببص في اللو وبعدين برايت ببص في الفيديو and so on. بعدين اعمل ايه؟ اروح قلب الورقه دي واروح بقى تاني كاتبهم من هنا. مش حافظهم. انا هكتب ده هيطلع قدامي كوزاين سكوير يبقى I will replace it with كذا. هيظهر عندي ساين 2 I will replace it with كذا and so on. فاهمني مستر مهاب؟ لذلك لما باجي اذاكر الماثماتكس مش بس بريد it. If you read it it will disappear but you will have to write it. So you read, you study, then you write, you solve on your own. You will find a lot of problems I've already shared with you in the early morning. بعت لك شيت النهارده الصبح على الواتساب. اوكي؟ عشان to try it by yourself. تعالوا بقى نبص على تاني. أنا عندي problem بيقول هو عنده tan of sine minus 1 of x و all of this equal to what? x معايا مستر مهاب x over a root of 1 minus x squared. عايز اعمل السؤال يبدأ من حاجة واحدة. What's the meaning of a sine? Meaningless. What's the meaning of a tan? Meaningless. It will have a meaning once it has an angle. يبقى لما اجي ابص على ده this is tan of what? What's the angle? Sine minus 1x. So I will start from this point. Actually, I'm trying to work with tan 1, where y equal to what? Sine minus 1x. Once you wrote it this way, it will be simple. So now I have y equal to a sine minus 1 of x. Which means this is the angle which is called y. and the value of this statement is x. يعني يا فريد اقدر to rewrite it as x equal to sine y. ليه قدرت اعمل ده؟ لان ده الانفرس فانكشن بتاع الساين. فهمني يا فريد؟ There is a difference between sine and angle and the inverse of the sine. Sine and angle, it will equal to, from the previous lecture, the opposite on the hypotenuse. Yes? Okay, the sine minus 1, it is the angle which sine value is x. So it is the inverse of this meaning. So when I say y equals sine minus 1x, this stands for, that's the angle and that's the value. يبقى الحركة اللي بعديها بجيب الفاليو x بتساوي مين؟ sine y, which makes sense. Okay, but all the sine or trigonometric functions are relative to triangles, right angle triangles. So what I'm writing here stands for the following. A right angle triangle. This is the right angle triangle. And it is for angle y. Let's say y is here. And it's equal to x, which means x over 1. But I know that the sine equal to the opposite, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 1. And for this number, I can get its value, which is simply, according to Pythagorean, it is the root of the hypotenuse square minus the opposite square, which is going to be 1 minus x squared. Now I've completed the triangle. So, لو انت خدت بالك, and I started from the angle, خدت الانجل بتاعتي, فرضتها باسم عشان اتعامل معاه, سميتها y, بعدين reversed everything, جبت ان الاكس value equal sin y, بعدين رجعت على الرايت انجل تريانجل رسمته, وعلى طول حطيت دي انجل y وجبت السايدز. This is the opposite, that is the hypotenuse. وبالتالي قدرت اجيب الممبر ده. دلوقتي انا اصلا عايز احل مين؟ تان واي. تقدر تجيب لي التان بتاع انجل واي from this triangle؟ تان بيساوي مين على مين؟ يعني قصدك انه تان y will equal to x over the root of 1 minus x squared. I think we nailed it.
بس مش في
اهو اهو
لا ده
بس فين راح فين الساين نيجاتيف 1 انفرس ساين
اهي اهي زعلان يعني انها مش هنا؟
هي بقت واي يعني
ارجع بقى انا هنا اروح قايل له ده عباره عن التان بتاع ساين minus 1 of x, which equal to x over the root of 1 minus x squared. Of course, if it was your first time to see this problem in specific, it will be hard on you to do it on your own. But now you already saw it. You saw that I can manipulate the angle by considering this angle equal to y, and take an advantage from the meaning of the inverse function by getting what is the value and what is the angle. Once you came to this point, you can write now or complete a right angle triangle. بالتالي تقدر تعملها. أنا شفت ده. بص له كويس قوي، بص له كويس قوي. نفس اللي أنا عملته بالظبط ده، أنا عايزك تحل لي المسألة دي. بص عليها. كوزاين 2 tan minus 1x, I want to prove that it's equal to 1 minus x squared over 1 plus mean x squared. نفس الاسلوب بالظبط. اوكي؟ يلا نعيدها سوا. نمشي ستيب باي ستيب. يلا واحدة واحدة. Okay. Once more. حازم. ابدأ لي من الرايت هاند سايد. رايت هاند سايد هو سوري الليفت هاند سايد هو عايزني اعمل ايه؟
انا
يجي يقول لي كوزاين ها
واي
2
2
بتاع مين؟
تان
مش كده برضو؟
اه
الانفرس of tan of an x صح كده؟ اوكي from where to start؟ يلا زي اللي فاتت
تان ايكوال
اه
اوفر
is smart guy على طول راح باصص على مين؟ على 10 minus 1x لذلك I will consider y equal 10 minus 1x from this statement you already know now that x is a value and y the angle so I will use the definition of the inverse 10 which leads to in x will equal to a 10 of y. Am I right? Okay, perfect. Now I will call the right angle triangle assisting this relation. Okay, this is the right angle triangle that we are talking about. Here we go. I will consider this is y. So that's x over 1. Which is from the tan, simply, it is the opposite, which is x, over the adjacent, which is 1. Now I can get the value of the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse will be a root of this member square plus this member square. So it's gonna be 1 plus x squared. I believe we are on the right track because I start to see 1 plus x squared. Okay? Very good. So now I have the triangle and I want to use it, but there is a problem. That's cosine 2 of a y. This triangle is very good in solving whatever related to angle y, but the relation is in terms of cosine 2y. Wait. I have identities, Mr. Muhab, which breaks cosine 2y in terms of cosine y or sine y. And actually, in specific for cosine 2y, how many relations do I have? 3 of them. One of them is cosine square minus sine square. The other one is 1 minus 2 sine square of x. The third one is 2 cosine square x minus 1. Choose any one that you like. I will choose the first. So I will replace this value to be a cosine square of y minus a sine square of y. This is from the trigonometric relations that we spoke about. So simply I will have a bracket to the power of 2 minus a bracket to the power of 2 and cosine y, which is simply can be got from here. Cosine y is the adjacent 1 over the hypotenuse, which is 1 plus x squared. Same way like sine squared, which is the opposite, that's x, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 1 plus x squared. So simply, it's going to be 1 over 1 plus x squared minus x squared over 1 plus x squared. Getting them together will lead to 1 minus x squared with a common denominator 1 plus x squared, which equal to the right hand side, and I have succeeded in proving this relation. ايه رأيك في دي؟ شبه على دي. Sine 3 sine minus 1 of x. واخد بالك انت ان ده 3x minus 4x cube؟
طب دكتور
حاول تعملها. انت مش واخد بالك ان احنا من شويه صغيرين جبنا مساله اللي هي فيها ساين كيوب اوف اكس بيساوي صح وكسرناه ووصلنا تقريبا لحاجه كده. يعني انا ممكن استخدم الايدنتيتي بص عليها وهي محلوله كمان معاك. ماشي الحق؟ قول غني.
نعم.
في حد بيقول لي دكتور
انا
قول.
يعني احنا جبنا واي منين؟
انا فرضتها. متصور بالمساله اللي فاتت تسال احنا جبنا واي منين؟ ما انا مش شغال على واي دي المره اللي فاتت. خدت الجزء بتاع ده ماينس 1 اكس ده وعملت assumption ان هو equal to angle y. ماشي؟ طالما التان ماينس، لان هو actual sin minus 1 arc sine or arc cosine it's an angle. دي angle. يبقى انا على طول خدت tan minus 1 x سميته مين؟ y. اوكي؟ الستيب اللي بعد سميته y z l m n b whatever. مجرد ما عملت كده خلاص انت دلوقتي عرفت ان الاكس دي الفاليو بتاعت الانجل التان بتاع الواي. خلاص انا عملت الريفرس لان الشكل مجرد ما انت جبت ده عرفت تخلق ده، لان دلوقتي انت عارف ان تان انجل واي ايكوال اكس. يبقى in any right angle triangle if this is angle y so the tan will be x over 1. So the hypotenuse can be got from figure green, which is the square root of the sum of these two angles squared, of course. معايا من؟
يعني هي tan باور نيجاتيف 1 دي تبقى ايكوال واي. يعني احطها ريبليس بواي.
واي او اي رمز تاني يعني يعجبك. ماشي؟
Why did we assume إنه y is the angle but not the angle?
ايه؟
Why did we assume that in the triangle y is the angle?
Because the inverse should be an angle. It could be done with
It could have been the other angle.
which other angle? Which other angle?
The one between x and square root of both of us in a triangle.
What's here? There is nothing here, if I understand you correctly.
In the triangle.
Okay, in the triangle. Okay. Huh?
Why did we assume that y is
In this angle,
not that one?
it will make no difference. If I put here y, also its tan will be x and 1. And the remaining will be root 1 plus x squared. And we'll adjust everything with respect to the new position of y, whatever. It will make no difference.
Doctor,
It's
You didn't? No.
It's going to be one over x instead of x.
No. See, that's the right angle. ده البوزيشن بتاع الواي صح؟ اللي انت بتقول عليه. طيب